Hey guys, we're in game number 3 of this Bo7 between WhiteRa and TLO. TLO won the last game, bringing his score 2-0 right now, so he is definitely in the lead. Did win the last game with a cheese build. He went one base Nidus. Well, actually a one base Roach Rush into a Nidus one, which was amazing to watch. Pull the drones, and those drones actually is what won TLO the game. However, the only reason that build really worked is because WhiteRa trusted TLO. WhiteRa had the probe hidden, went in for the delayed scout, except he delayed scout the two third base locations. If he actually went in to check the natural instead of checking the two different places for a third base, he would have seen that with more than enough time to prep up and defend against it. So WhiteRa trusting TLO a little too much, and TLO choosing the perfect game to cheese, showing us that Zergs, they can still play one base and be effective. WhiteRa going out to scout after that 9 pylon. I'm kind of curious if WhiteRa goes for another Nexus first. He has done that both in games 1 and 2 and lost games 1 and 2. However, game number 1 was more of a macro game, and we'll see exactly what WhiteRa does. TLO, he is not hiding another drone behind the middle line, which shows he probably wants to go for a pool first, except the one drone could have snuck and got that hatch, but he is instead going to go for a 13 pool. That pool is a little bit early, and WhiteRa better go for a Forge before that Nexus, because if he does Nexus first, that small early pool, being built one supply ahead of time, kind of gives the indication that TLO may want to just run those links straight into WhiteRa's main base. They will come out a little bit earlier, which means that normal cannon timing is non-existent. So we do have WhiteRa now building that Forge, realizing the pool is a little bit early, or maybe realizing, well, the two games I went Nexus first did not work. So gonna go with the Forge first, and now he will be getting a Nexus at 17 supply, it looks. And a drone coming in for TLO, going to be drone scouting, and this will also allow him to block the Nexus. Oh man, TLO giving WhiteRa a taste of his own medicine. Unfortunately, TLO can't build a pylon and block them. You can see WhiteRa's minerals going up to 500 when he got the Nexus down. So TLO doing a little bit of damage, and now still trying to block the gateway, and a cannon is going to get placed. And TLO being as annoying as possible. We do have a lot of lings across the way, so it's a good thing that WhiteRa didn't build a gate. But can you imagine if that drone, like, delays this cannon for another 10 seconds? Somehow the drone can delay the cannon, guessing the position where WhiteRa would want to build it. For, let's see, how long would it have to be? That one drone does see the cannon. Gonna start doing damage to this probe, so... okay, it gets up, WhiteRa blocks with another gateway. But if he didn't get that block off, just at one time canceling this one cannon with the drone would allow these lings to get in, and that all comes from this 13 pool. So a little bit interesting there, and TLO also building, looks like 6 lings out of that 13 pool instead of the normal 4 to kill a pylon. So TLO had the intention the entire game to try to go for a run by, but just couldn't. Gateway is complete. WhiteRa looks like he wants to. Yes, he is going to be canceling that. And going to get the cybernetics core in place. He is going up back to 400 minerals. What are you doing, WhiteRa? Something's definitely a little bit odd. He is getting a assimilator right now. This is just one gas. And the cybernetics core is getting placed. So, keep in mind, in game number 1, when I said about that early gas, and this one probe is going to be trying to deny the third base, but when I was talking about the early gas in game number 1, he had both of these gases, like, finished before the cybernetics core started, I believe. Or maybe it was they were finished before the cybernetics core finished. In either attempts, both gases were started at the same time this one gas was started, basically. So it kind of shows you that, yes, you can kind of guess what a Protoss is going to be doing based upon the gas timings. And TLO, he knows this, so the first overload he uses, the second overload he uses to scout, goes to this location, because now this overload can come in, see this gas. And there's one overload right here. You can see when WhiteRa moves out. Meanwhile, these rocks are still getting taken out. Zealot going to try to put an end to that. But the lings are going to go and try to get us around some nice micro on these lings of TLO, but I think they were already injured. So the Zealot is a big bully. But this one overload right here can see units move out. Right over here, he can see this one gas. And if he keeps on moving, he can see this gas. Generally, he won't go poke there, but you can kind of see TLO just placing his overload so he can see the gas timings of his opponent. WhiteRa going to go for a really fast third base to answer TLO's third base. And where does this overload come from? Why is it critical? Because that overload is generally the one that watches this natural and makes sure you don't get cannon rushed. So, because TLO drone scouted, he knew where the probes were. It was safe for him to move this one overload into position. Now he can come in, see just one gas, and this is going to be key to what TLO builds. Because he just got his third base up. So now he's getting the Roach one. This is him saying, do I save my larva or do I do another drone pump? Seeing this one gas and not the third base, I think that TLO is not going to build any units after these, any more drones. And that one Zealot down there doing a very nice job against his lings. The Stalker picking off lings from that high ground. We don't have speed done. The Roach one has started. Will TLO go for that Roach, the lair before ling speed? That is the main thing I'm wondering. He has 200 gas. So I think he's just going to build a lot of Roaches right now. He's getting the lair right now really late on that lair. Has still 100 gas left over. Probably a mistake by TLO. He's not getting Roaches, so I'm going to be assuming that was a mistake. One Stalker is going to bait these lings back, but keep in mind, TLO doesn't know about this third base. Only sees one gas here. Now he sees gas coming up at this base. Yeah, he sees the gas over here, but because there wasn't two gas in the main, TLO probably thinks it's going to be some type of gateway timing. WhiteRa, though, now just... Oh, no, he's starting +2 ground attack, and TLO probably knows that. So he probably thinks like it is going to be some type of gateway timing. That just isn't coming. So TLO is getting drones now. Kind of realizing something is up. Does see this one base, so I think he did run in a few lings to see the third base and sees it complete with all the buildings there. So TLO going back to droning after he sees it. Realizes, oh man, you aren't doing any type of gateway timing. I've just built a lot of units. TLO only at 54, well now 59 drones. And WhiteRa at 51. So WhiteRa really not that far behind in the worker count. Going into supply, TLO only ahead by about 5. And WhiteRa getting a double robo facility right now. And if TLO just builds nothing but Roaches, this is going to be really bad. But as I did say in game number 1, TLO isn't really about that Roach max out at 12 minutes. And there's lings trying to focus on this one Stalker. Lots of Zealots. And playing a game of ring around the Zealots, and that is not a game lings like to play. And that Stalker still lives. 2 Spine Callers walking their way on over. Gonna burrow. Now these lings gonna go back to the Stalker, but WhiteRa still gets the micro off on it. And Spine Callers are gonna burrow. He is just trying to delay time till he gets the Spire out. However, WhiteRa is going for a Twilight Council, so he can get Blink. If he gets Blink on the Stalkers, it will be very good. Mutas generally are not a good unit on Cloud Kingdom. A lot of protos kind of been figuring out Mutas anyway, so they've been less and less effective. But on Cloud Kingdom, all 3 bases are clustered up in like a triangle. And most importantly, you can Blink from the third base to the main. So how are your Mutas going to really do damage when the Stalkers can follow them very easily? Like, Mutas normally like hopping around in areas where ground can't walk. Or Stalkers can't Blink. So you need big periods of, like, openness, or the bases to be horizontally aligned, like in Ohana, where the third base would be right here. But because the bases aren't horizontally aligned, they're in a triangle, and there's no area where the Stalkers can just quickly Blink to go between bases, Mutas really aren't that effective. TLO is going to try to run in, and the Zealot does get whooped in just in time, and that run-in is not going to be effective. WhiteRa does get a force field off, preventing those lings from running in just a little bit longer. More units can be whooped off in the back. Warp Prism is done and going to be walking his way, or flying his way over to TLO's base. Meanwhile, the Immortal is out also to fend off against these Roaches. And I think TLO did see the Warp Prism, so he should know that is coming. We do have +1 armor on the way. But I'm really curious on what these Mutas are going to be doing. There are a lot of Mutas coming out, and this is a sudden influx of Mutas. Going to be suddenly from 0 Mutas to 16 plus. So this is enough Mutas to catch your opponent off guard. However, if he doesn't catch his WhiteRa off guard and WhiteRa gets enough Stalkers to defend against these Mutas, it is going to spell disaster for TLO. And TLO going to be taking out a Warp Prism with all these Zealots in it. It's good that he kills that. However, he only really kills 600 minerals for showing, hey, I got Mutas. So now WhiteRa is going to get those Stalkers up, get in defense to deal with this. And delaying that just a little bit does get his Muta scouted. And he is going in with Lings and Roaches as well with these Mutas, but WhiteRa has a beautiful wall up at this third base. Those cannons being pretty effective. And now we do have the Stalkers blinking around to deal with the Mutas. One Muta falls, and now there's more Stalkers than Mutas right here. The Stalkers are at 1-1, Mutas are at 0-1. Roach is getting some pot shots in, but that's not enough. Mutas do have to back off, and WhiteRa easily going to be able to defend this in TLO, doing something I haven't really seen any Zergs do. Look at this wall of creep. One Stalker out here is like, get out of here, Overlords. No doing that. TLO going to be taking another base, going up on 4 bases. The worker count, 72 probes to 62 drones. And the Muta's not going to be killing off that one Stalker. Oddly enough, the Observer going to see these Overlords. He's like, what's going on? That's a lot of creep out in the middle of nowhere. And Muta's going to go in, try to do damage to this natural. This is the best base to do damage. But again, look how close the Stalkers are and how quickly they will get here. And watch, the Mutas can't really hop between any bases. The only path is to retreat, and that's retreating in a way that WhiteRa is not expanding. There's no easy base hopping on Cloud Kingdom for the Zerg with Mutas, so again, not the best choice for Mutas. TLO, though, is going to be mass expanding, doing this creep. Maybe this is going to work out. The Mutas are buying him time to get up on a lot of bases. He is now just getting that infestation pit. Observer coming around, just checking what's going on. Bunches and bunches of Lings are coming in. And there's Mutas going to come in. The Stalkers, though, in position. Now the Stalkers get a flank. Lings do come in, flanking the Stalkers that try to flank. And that was a pretty cool mind game. However, there are more than enough Stalkers to deal with that, and TLO has to flee with his Mutas. WhiteRa has a beautiful Muta defense. And now TLO going to be going back in. Those Mutas are getting pretty injured. There are 2 cannons here. The Stalkers already here. TLO cannot do any damage with these Mutas going into that loss tab. TLO still losing less than WhiteRa. And that's odd to say. Every game, TLO's lost less than his Protoss opponent, when generally Protoss loses less against Zerg. However, WhiteRa has a really scary army right now. TLO, his army mainly is Mutas. 52 supply of the 81 is tied up into Mutas. So he's got 30 supply of units in Lings and Roaches against all these Immortals and Stalkers that are higher on upgrades. I believe, no, that 2-2 just about done. A lot more Lings on the way, but this is a scary army from WhiteRa. And he fended off the Mutas without taking any damage, and now this is what happens when that happens. They get a really big army, walk across the map, and your Mutas are like, well, crap. We couldn't engage this at their base, and now they're all clumped up at our base. Lots of drones are going down, and the Mutas are falling. It looks like there are enough Stalkers to deal with these Mutas relatively easily, as you do see all the Mutas now falling. There goes the GG by TLO. And again, I kind of think this game goes into making Mutas on Cloud Kingdom. TLO, great player. Mutas can be effective if you catch your opponent off guard, but catching that one Warp Prism, while it may seem good, I don't know if saying, hey, I have Mutas is worth 600 minerals, because TLO had a lot of Mutas. That was like 18 Mutas he saw that Warp Prism with. Which means, if they got in and WhiteRa didn't expect it, 18 Mutas can kill off all the Stalkers, and then there's enough to snowball, and you can't really get up enough Stalkers to defend against the Mutas. So I think that's what TLO was going for that game. But being spotted early on by the Warp Prism, yeah, it's great you killed a Warp Prism, but in all honesty, again, going back to it, any unit out of the Robo facility, not good against Mutas. Maybe the Observer. Maybe the Observer because you can see them. But the Warp Prism, what did it have? Well, Zealots. What are Zealots not good against? Mutas. So, again, killing those Zealots, not really worth it, in my eyes. And, yeah, WhiteRa played that very well, and had beautiful defense against Mutas. I said Cloud Kingdom wasn't a good map for Mutas, but generally Mutas still do more damage than that. WhiteRa had the Mutas on complete lockdown, having his Stalkers separated, so when the Mutas came, he had a handful of Stalkers that could delay the Mutas. And that gave time for the other Stalkers to come, blink in, and then deal with the mutas. Very beautiful play by WhiteRa with that. Generally, Stalkers just blink around to each base, but he had them split up between the bases, and then when the mutas came, that's when a few Stalkers delayed the mutas in time for the other groups to come and reinforce. Beautiful game by WhiteRa and TLO, and WhiteRa brings the series now to 1-2. We will be going into game number 4, so stay tuned.